Hello and welcome again to our next webinar. This webinar is hosted by Love Your Menses and Your Health, a conversation with Sista Docs. Our topic today is setting and keeping your wellness and self-care goals for the year. I am your host, Dr. Ebere Azuma. I'm the co-founder and president of Love Your Menses. Please join me in welcoming our panelist, Dr. Mercy Luguterah. Well, before she gets started, I will quickly go over our presentation. We love presentation because we believe that you looking and seeing the words can be helpful. So we are going to share our slides. Again, welcome to another Sista Docs conversation with Sista Docs, Dr. Mercy Luguterah. Just a brief introduction for those that do not know me. I am an OBGYN board certified. I'm a public health professional, community health educator, and social entrepreneur. I'm the co-founder and president of Love Your Menses. Apart from all of this, I'm a trained doula, a certified life coach, and an author. Please continue to support the work that I do by liking on Love Your Menses and visiting us. Okay, just quick statement of use. By participating in this program, you grant permission to Love Your Menses to use your name, image, and your voice in any of our electronic, print, or multimedia publication. Please know that the information provided is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice. We still recommend that you have a primary care physician or specialist that you go to for advice. All right, so let me quickly introduce Dr. Luguterah. Dr. Luguterah is an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland, the Global Campus, where she serves as one of the experts in behavioral science. She holds 2 master's degrees in social work and social studies. She served as a director and leader in various Montessori schools. Dr. Luguterah has published a total of 3 books, 2 children books, The Red Cross and the Thankful Christmas. And the next book, the 3rd book, which I have in my right here, is Someone Like You. And she's going to talk more about her books towards the end of this presentation. Please join me in welcoming her. Here you go, Dr. Luguterah. It's all you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be back, and particularly with this topic. So first of all, Happy New Year. It's still new in the year, and it's actually a time of the year where a lot of people like to, set up goals, maybe financial goals or physical fitness, and all these are great goals. But it's also a great opportunity to set up self-care and wellness goals. And sometimes we start, we start something and maybe we get stuck or we're unable to complete it. So today's discussion is more like, how do you set it and what are some of the best practices to enable you to complete your wellness goals or to actually accomplish them as much as possible in 2024. So self-care and wellness, both of which are very crucial to everything that we do. So I'm excited to be talking about that today. Okay. All right. So I think we're going to continue and go to the next slide. Is that okay, Dr. Zuma? Okay. So I wanted to start off by a 30-second reflection exercise. So like next 30 seconds, just maybe whatever you're doing, take a pause and try to think about this year, anything that has excited you or anything that is maybe bothering you, and give yourself 30 minutes to just, observe some moment of silence and just reflect on how you're feeling right now, how your day has gone so far, what could you have done to make it better? If you've had a great day, you can still make it better. What could you have done to make it better? Could you have maybe taken a pause? Have you had time to just actually breathe today, to think about yourself, to embrace yourself, just to love yourself on a daily basis? And such simple things as this, as just taking a minute, or breathing in and out, taking that moment is part of what we're going to discuss today. Self-care, the small things and the big things. So just try to make it a practice and reflect on that. But when we talk about wellness, we hear that language used a lot. What does it really mean? Like, generally speaking, what is wellness, right? It's not just one thing, it's a state of being, good health. It's something that you pursue, because wellness is not something that is given to you or comes automatically. You have to go after it. You have to be proactive, which is why we set goals. You have to be intentional. And when you set them, you actually want to practice these healthy or positive attitudes or habits, so that you can get a good outcome. So wellness can be physical goals, mental health goals, different kinds of goals, just so you're in a better place overall. And all of these things add up to overall wellness goals, right? So these are just very brief, general definitions of what wellness really entails. And then we go to self-care. Self-care is more specific, I would say, caring for yourself, right? So caring for yourself like you care for a plant. I put a plant next to it because when you think of a plant, if you really want it to grow well, you have to feed it, you have to water it, you have to nurture it. If you want a good outcome for your plant, it's more like self-care. If you want a better version of yourself, you do want to do things that nurture you, things that promote you, that make you a better version, right? Or the best version of yourself. You definitely have to be intentional. You definitely have to do things for yourself. And self-care, we say, is not being selfish, it's caring for yourself so you can be a better person when you engage with others. So that's what self-care really entails, being very, very intentional. There are different types of self-care, right? People might say there are 6 types, there are 4 types. What is important is that you realize that there are many dimensions of it. So when you're setting your wellness goals, you want to set it around these main dimensions, because if you're off on one side of it, it might impact the other goals, wellness or self-care goals that you're trying to pursue. So there's a physical one, physical goals, maybe fitness. There's a mental goal, how you think and how your emotions interact. Your spiritual goals for those who practice some kind of a faith. There's a spirituality to it. It's a component of being well. Intellectual, do you want to learn new skills? Environment, the people around you. Your social life, the people you want to interact with, and your financial goals, right? Because for some people, if they're not financially stable, then everything else can be out of whack. But if you want a complete picture of self-care, you want to be able to take care of these dimensions as best as possible, because all of that will tie into what we come to know as self-care. Caring for yourself is more than just one thing. Yeah, so there are 8 types of it, 4 types, 6 types, just known as more than one thing. So myths about self-care, right? Sometimes you say if you're caring for yourself, you're being selfish. But I like to use the example of when you are boarding a flight, and before you take off, they tell you the same thing over and over again, even if it's a 40-hour flight, 40-minute flight, 1-hour flight, 6-hour flight, 13-hour flight. It doesn't matter. As long as it's a flight, one of the things that they do at the beginning is to provide some kind of information or education. And they will tell you when the oxygen levels change or something like that in the aircraft, they tell you that, where to find your mask is going to drop, or you have to do with your mask. And they tell you one thing: put your mask on first before you help someone else, right? So even if you have your kid seated next to you, they always tell you, make sure you have your mask on before you help anyone else. Because the reason is, if you're stable, then you can help others. If you're unstable or you're panicking, then you're not going to be in a position to really help someone. Both of you can become a casualty. So this is what self-care is about. It's not being selfish. It's taking time to invest in yourself in every dimension so that you can turn around and be a better person. Self-care cannot be separated from your health care, right? So if you're unwell and you're not taking care of your health, your physical health, then it's going to interact with your self-care goals, right? So you can't separate them. The two are very important. There's always time for self-care. Sometimes people say, I don't have time for myself. I don't have time. While it might be true that you can be busy because there's a lot going on, and yes, there are certain times or of the day or certain periods in our life where we have a lot going on at once. That happens to everybody. But on the grand scheme of things, there's always time for self. It can be 5 minutes, it can be a minute, what we did at the beginning, it can be 30 minutes, but you actually want to schedule yourself. You want to put yourself on the schedule the same way you put others on your calendar, or you go to work and you have things scheduled. You also want to schedule your self-care so that you will be able to, give yourself that attention that you definitely need. Self-care is also no respect of age, geographic location, or anything like that. People think that, well, when you are younger, you can get away with things. You don't have to pay too much attention. When you're older, then yes, you have to pay attention to certain things. No, But no, self care is something that cuts across every age, every stage, everywhere on this planet. Self care is something that we all can take seriously because it has lots of benefits for us. So, next time you think about self care, don't think about it as something being selfish, but rather see it as something that is important in order for you to be the best version to engage with the people around you. If you care about the people around you or you care about people in your life, you want to take care of yourself so that you can be a better person for them. So self care is important and it's applicable to everyone, regardless of your age or your geographical location. So self care, let's practice it. Tips for accomplishing your wellness goals or your self care goals. I like to use that interchangeably because as we see, self care and wellness, it cuts across various domains. There are tips for it. There's a right way to accomplish things, and there's also an incorrect way or a less perfect way of trying to accomplish this very, very important goal. So we're going to go through a few of the tips, very practical tips that we can all apply so that in 2024, more than ever, we will be able to attain, if not all of our wellness or self care goals, at least as much of it as we possibly can, given our individual circumstances. All right. So, tip number one, if you're setting self care goals, first of all, they have to be simple, smart, and realistic, right? Very simple, very smart. So, for instance, you're setting a goal pertaining to fitness, which a lot of people like to do in January. So, let's say you set a goal and you say, well, Monday through Friday, I'm going to spend 2 hours in the gym every day. And yet you know that that is not a goal that is practical or something that you can be consistent with, right? So you want to really set goals that you can actually attain, not goals because someone else is doing it or goals because you're trying to be like someone else. No, you're setting goals that are simple for you. It could be 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is, but it is something that you can pursue, something that is realistic, something that is smart, right? So you can say 5 minutes 2 days a week or 3 days a week so that when you look back and you're trying to track, you can tell whether you're working closer towards your goals or you're further away from it. And sometimes you might set off a certain goal and you might have to tweak it down the line. That's okay. But at least at the beginning, let it be something that is practical and something that is realistic, right? Because if it is realistic, there's a higher chance that you'll be able to accomplish it. You don't want to say, I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. every day to run for an hour, because that may not be a practical goal for you and you're going to fail at it. You also want it to be something that you can really be consistent with. Don't set a goal that you can only do for 1 week in a year. Let it be something that you can consistently do, because if you're consistently practicing something, that you have a better chance of actually seeing those results come to fruition, right? Also know that your goals can be reviewed and modified. You might start off thinking, oh, I only want to do 10 minutes, and you find out, well, 20 minutes I can do 20 minutes. Or you might start off realistically 20 minutes and you find out that maybe I have to make it 15 minutes. Or you might think I can go 5 times a week. You find out that your schedule changes, you can only go 3 times a week. But it's important that you review and you edit, you modify, so that your goals, your self-care goals or wellness goals reflect something that is achievable, something that is attainable, and you can work your way up, right? You don't want to start off with an hour and you can't do it. It can be incremental, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then as you go on, you add, you change it, and all of that. You also want to celebrate your goals, right? So you don't want to wait until December 2024 to celebrate your achievements. So maybe once a week or every other week, make it a point to, recognize what you've been able to do and to celebrate your accomplishments and things that you might have struggled with. You want to ask yourself, why did I have a challenge here? Why is it difficult for me to accomplish this goal? You do want to sit back and try to edit it. If it's a financial goal that maybe you set the bar too high, again, you want to sit back, take time to reflect, recognize the challenges, acknowledge them, fix them, adjust them so that they're more reflective and they're more attainable. And that way you stand a better chance of actually accomplishing your goals and not feeling too discouraged because you're never able to attain what you've set out for yourself. So those are, I would say, some of the practical wellness and self-care goals that you need to set for yourself. Additional tips also, when it comes to our social wellness or things that we want for ourselves as far as social interactions, you do want to view your relationships or things around you as emotional deposits. Think of a bank, right? There are times where you have to withdraw for a bank, and there are times also when you have to deposit. Now, the problem is is when your withdrawals exceed your deposits in the banking system, you'll not be able to withdraw money from the ATM, or you want to pay a bill, it's going to get declined, and you will be charged for having insufficient funds in your account. Think of your emotional life or your self-care life that way. If you always have lots of triggers and stresses, things that are taking away positive energy, if those things always exceed the things that you're able to deposit, or the good times or the healthy times or the positive times, if your negative interactions and your triggers exceed those positive moments, you're always going to be, your bank account is going to be overdrawn in the wrong sense. You're always going to be maybe anxious, frustrated, irritated, unwell even, right? Because you have lots of triggers, lots of negativity. So you do want to be able to be proactive about the people you surround yourself with, how you engage with people. If you recognize your triggers, you want to do something about it, right? If you find that when you don't have enough sleep, you're highly irritable and stressed, then that's an easy fix. What do I need to do to be able to get more rest so that I'm a better version of myself and I can engage with people in a better way? So everyone has different triggers. Look at it. Is there a particular person that is constantly triggering you negatively? Can you limit your interaction with this person? Can you be more proactive about, how often you spend time around them or things you do with them? Can you limit that so that you're not having a lot of emotional withdrawals, but you're giving yourself deposits so that you can stay well and be a better version of yourself? So it's important also about being proactive and limiting sometimes our exposure to those things that constantly drain us, constantly withdraw us in our life. So that becomes a very necessary self-care tip as well. And I know sometimes people have questions. What do I need to do? Or how do I need to make this work? There's something called mindfulness. And it's always important to be aware of how you feel and where you are. You don't want to go through the day or through the week without recognizing your emotions, right? So a 30-second exercise every day, if you can, as much as possible, just to assess yourself. How am I feeling today? What are the things that might be bothering me today? Am I settling in? What are the things I need to be conscious of? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I upset about something someone did? Because if you're mindful, you can quickly, recognize your emotions, and you can do something to stop it from going overboard, right? So you're being very proactive about it. You also want to set boundaries. If you know that when you're triggered, when you're upset, you can easily overreact or say things, then you set boundaries for yourself to say, okay, I know that I'm getting angry, I'm going to walk away, or I'm not going to speak, or I'm going to, you're going to really, really be self-aware so that you know how to engage or what to do with yourself. Sometimes you need to attend therapy. Sometimes people have real heavy stresses or heavy things, maybe from the past, that keep interrupting what they're trying to do, and you need a place where you can get some clinical tools, or you can just engage with someone to help you offload. If your case is to that extent, then yes, it's okay to consider therapy so that you can get the help you need to be well. So self-care therapy also plays an important role for those who actually need that, right? So recognize the difference between factors that you can control and factors you cannot control. Sometimes we're worried, a lot worried about things that are outside of our control, and it doesn't do anything to help us. So for instance, it snowed the other day, yesterday, right? Or the day before. So if it's snowing a lot, and maybe you're worried about snow, oh, I wish it didn't snow, I wish I can control the snow. Well, you cannot control the snow, but you can control how you dress up for the weather, right? So that even though the weather is what it is, you, on the other hand, are keeping safe and keeping warm, because that is within your ability, and that is within your control, right? So those are proactive self-care tips. And then for those who also practice some level of spirituality, that is also a good proactive self-care tip. You can rely on meditation, on scriptures, on text, things that help you stay grounded. And that is also something that can be very, very beneficial for you. Being proactive about your wellness, you're owning who you are, because you want to be a better version of yourself this year. And these are things that we all can do at different levels and in different stages of our life. Right. So proactive self-care tips. I came across a prayer which is very important, and I like the principle more than anything. The principle behind the prayer is saying that you want to be able to know the difference between things that are within your control, and you want to be able to have the wisdom to know how to walk away or how to deal with things that are outside your control. control. Like I said, there are always things that you can control and the things that you cannot control. When we focus a lot on things we cannot control, we'll always be out of sync emotionally because there's nothing you can do about it. But when you focus on things that are within your control, then you can do something about it. You can decide you may not be able to control maybe your family or where you live, but you can control what you expose yourself to, people you talk to, whether you answer your phone or not, how long you stay on the phone, the food you eat, your financial goals, things like that, things you can control so that you give yourself that positive energy, which is very, very important. So that's the serenity prayer, the wisdom behind it. When is a good time to practice self-care? It's another question that people ask. And I'm wondering if you know the answer. Any time is a good time to practice self-care. You don't necessarily have to be at a specific location. You could be in a grocery store, you could be at work, right? If you do have a lunch break, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can practice self-care. Seated at your desk for 1 minute, you can practice self-care. You can meditate for 30 seconds. Just any time is a good time to practice self-care because you want to tell yourself that you are worth taking care of. You're worth being cared for. You're worth giving your best value out there. You are worth getting all those things that are very important to you. So every time is a good time to practice self-care. So I want us to remember that it's not just in January when everyone is trying to go to the gym and stay fit and thinking about financial goals. Every time, every day, throughout the year, every single time is a very, very good time, absolutely good time to practice self-care. Okay, so let's get to it. Take care of yourself today, like I said, every time, not tomorrow, not yesterday, not something you did in the past. It doesn't have to be something as big as going to the spa or going on a special girls trip. Those are good, but those are like planned major events that you do occasionally. But on a daily basis, it could be as simple as drinking tea by yourself for 5 minutes or coffee for 5 minutes, taking a walk for 5 minutes, or just sitting down, closing your eyes and taking deep breaths, right? Just simple, basic self-care things. Or maybe journaling if that's your thing, or listening to some kind of good music, or taking a quick walk, or just enjoying the weather outside for a few minutes. Little things to care for yourself, staying fit as much as possible, dressing well, grooming yourself, little things of self-care, putting your mask on first so that you can take care of others. You can be a better version of yourself, to take care of yourself, and then you can take care of others. But by doing self-care, by practicing self-care, you are saying that you're choosing you first, and then you can get onto other things. So self-care, do it every day. Today is a good day. Now is a good time to practice self-care for yourself. All right. So I'm going to wrap up. I didn't want to go on for too long. Just recognize that, we're talking about the various domains of self-care, and it's not just one thing, it's different things: spiritual self-care, financial self-care, your physical health, and your mental, and even trying to be intellectual, learning skills, improving yourself, improving your skill sets, building upon it step by step, having those goals that are very practical, realistic, relevant to you, and just being proactive overall, right? It's not enough to just write it down, but to practice those steps and to prioritize yourself because you are important. And just remember that when it comes to wellness or self-care, it's not something that is given. You have to work towards it. And some days might be harder than others, but if you are committed to working through the process, right? Through the process, you will be able to get yourself back as quickly as possible. You're not going to always feel unwell or tired because you're looking at your triggers, you're recognizing them, and you are distancing yourself, or you're limiting your exposure to those triggers so you can be a better version of yourself. Self-care is about choosing you so you can in turn around and help others. So self-care is important. Self-care is not being selfish. If anything, it's being responsible, it's being accountable so that your wellness journey can be a productive one for yourself and every other person that is around you. Okay. So pause, reflect, relax, declutter, right? When your mind is full of things, you're always busy. If you look at the picture, you're always busy. There's so many things. Your mind is full. Your mind is everywhere. Your mind is full. So are you that kind of person that has so many things going on at once? And sometimes, that happens to all of us. But for the most part, you do want to declutter mentally. Physically, you want to physically when it comes to your clothes. When you have so many clothes in your closet, sometimes you don't even realize you have something, then you go and buy the same thing because you didn't even realize you had it there. But when you declutter, you can see things better. You have a broadened perspective, right? So instead of letting your mind be full of things, you can now be mindful, right? You move to the other side where you can see things clearly, you can be more relaxed, you're decluttering and you're processing things, you're less irritated because you've taken time to give yourself a broadened perspective, or to have a better view on life because you've had time to reflect and to pause and to water yourself and to grow yourself, so in a good position to interact with others. So that's what it means to be mindful instead of being busy. And to summarize it, I have 3 books on Amazon: two children's book, The Red Purse and A Thankful Christmas, and the third book I just wrote that one in November, last November, this past November. And this book is for adults, and it talks about my journey as an individual. It's titled Someone Like Me, but it's something that connects with a lot of people, right? The identity we grow up with, how we view ourselves, the perceptions we have of ourselves, and things about self cannot take in well of ourselves because maybe we have self-esteem issues, or we are not certain, or we believe certain things that are not us, and we are trying to find our way through life to be able to have a better understanding of what our purpose is, what our role is, and not to pass on, these negative tendencies of low self-esteem, of misunderstanding things around us, not valuing ourselves because we've not really taken time to invest in ourselves because we don't think we are worth it, and we let maybe culture or certain things, sometimes even certain religions, try to tell us we are a lesser version of ourselves than others. But as I wrote this thing, Someone Like Me, was my experience growing up in an African country, in Ghana, and the cultural perceptions, how some of those things limited me. I do talk about the positive sides of it, the community aspect of it, the great things that come with it, but also recognizing some of the beliefs or the traits that were not necessarily helpful, and how that impacted the people that I related with, my family, my friends, my loved ones. But over time, I had to grow out of it. I had to begin to practice self-care. I had to be able to, look at things, debunk certain things, and realize that if I wanted to move forward and be a better version of myself, I needed to let certain things go, and I needed to embrace more positive things that I could work with. So Someone Like Me focuses on that. But I do want to end by saying that, whichever way we go through life, whatever path you're on, it's never too late to really assess ourselves and to know whether we're taking care of ourselves, if we are well enough. In 2024, you want to have that goal of caring for yourself so you can achieve your goals, and you can go on to be all those things that you are destined for, all those things that you are capable of being, because you've set goals for yourself, not what someone wants you to set. You recognize who you are, you set your self-care goals. They are simple, they're realistic, they're practical, they are multidimensional, and you do it because you care for yourself and you are important. You're investing in yourself. You're not being selfish. You want to be accountable so that way you can then turn around and be productive to everyone around you. So my wish for you, my prayer for you is that in 2024, you will set these self-care goals and you'll actually be able to attain them, and to be a better version of yourself come December 2024. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Luguterah, for that wonderful presentation on self-care. Self-care to me is very foreign. Um, Foreign not because I don't know the lingo. I'm a life coach, so I know what self-care is, but it's still there's still a disconnect in my mind when we talk about self-care. It's just I don't know. It feels weird. Because when you think of self-care, at least people that are macho, people that are very, like independent, it's like, okay, like why? So my question for you is there a good synonym for self-care? Because it seems like it's focusing more on just the individual. Like it's almost promoting, narcissistic behavior. I mean, I'm not saying that's the
Mhm,
case. I'm giving a scenario. Obviously, like I said earlier, I
mhm,
promote self-care, but I can see, if talking to a patient or a client that is very driven, very hardworking, not into their spirituality,
mhm,
self-care seems
mhm.
too foreign. So, what would be a synonym for
Maybe
that
it's,
person?
maybe it's maybe self-love. I don't know if that's a better word for them, because if you love yourself, if you love yourself, you would feed, let's say you feed yourself the right thing, right? If you love yourself, you not intentionally want to harm yourself. And if you love yourself, you not intentionally put yourself on the back burner and let people walk all over you, or not take good care of yourself, right? So it's more like the same way we would, and it's interesting you say that, because if you ask the same person, oh, do you care for your family? Do you care for parents or
Mm-hmm.
siblings? Oh yeah, I do. I care for them. I love them.
Yeah.
I do this, that, right? So we feel like care is others are worthy of it, others deserve it, right? So
Yes.
it's easy
Yeah.
for us to think of it externally, but when it comes to us, you're
Mm.
thinking, do I need to care for myself? Well, you need to care for yourself, right? Because if you don't, then you're not going to be there to be able to provide care to others. So which is why when we talk about self-care, we look at it as you are you're being accountable to yourself, so that when you engage with others, you are giving them a better version of yourself, right? Because like we use the example of the airplane, when they say put your mask on, is
Mm.
because they know if you are destabilized and you're trying to help someone, the best you can give them is a destabilized version of yourself, because that's the best you have, right? That's the best you can give. But then if
Yeah,
you
I
are
get it.
settled and in a good
Mm.
place, then you can help someone. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I get it, but self-care became a lingo maybe in the last 10, 15 years. People before then were happy. Like, so how would you, were they practicing self-care and did
Yeah.
not know it? Or like, why are we so big on self-care now when people were living happier? I mean, if you look at the rate of depression is worse now that we're
Hmm.
talking about self-care and all of that.
Yes.
And you give an example of how it's easy for us to care for people externally, but we don't have anything like neighbor care, neighbor love. Like, so, like, why are we focusing on just us as individuals?
Yes, because and it's good you say that, because if you look
Mm.
at it,
Yeah.
our world has changed a lot, right? It used to be a time past where people lived in communities. So you had this communal support, you had a lot of things going for you. Therapy was kind of sort of inbuilt. When you engage with people, when you talk to people, you have this kind of social life. You're able to interact with real people or go places.
Mm.
But that has changed a lot. We've become a lot more, thanks, technology has done great things for us. But one of the things that has impacted us, or if not managed well, are social relationships, are social connections. So that part that automatically was inbuilt to help us, for some of us, we are lacking that, right? But you're still a human being. So if you're not intentional about connecting with those things, you're going to find yourself in a lot of crisis, which is why we
Okay.
have people today, not just older
Okay.
people, but young people, lots of crisis when it comes to depression, anxiety, because we are missing a lot on those important social skills, which comes back to impact us. Plus, we have a world that has a lot of things going on. We are busier every year. Looks like everyone is under a lot of some kind of pressure,
Yeah.
right? And so if you don't take the time to really give yourself positive energy, it's gonna be like constantly people
Okay.
constantly taking from you, pulling away, taking away from you,
Okay.
just because of how our world is becoming. There's a lot of pressure at work, at home. There's a lot taken away from you than it used to be. So if you don't give yourself some positive energy, you're always going to come up short. Upset, stressed, anxious, worried, even sick, because you're in this revolving state of I'm giving much more than I'm capable, than I have to give, right? And because you don't
Okay.
take the time to say, you know what, I need to recharge. I need to charge my phone. I need to recharge so that I can stay on longer for someone else, right? You're always kind of like running out of battery, or even our phones go dead. I'll say emotionally, right? Because you've given everything, and not taking the time to give something back to yourself. So that's why self-care is becoming a big thing, because the society's almost like it's running counter self-care, taken away from you. Yeah. So that's why it's becoming a big thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Mhm.
Luguterah, for really explaining why. Now it makes a lot of sense. So, what you just said, if I could recap, is in our changing world with technology, with just putting so much at work, putting so much in school, putting so much in others,
it is healthy for us now to focus on self-care if we want to remain successful as individuals and as a
Mm-hmm.
community. That makes sense. That's
Yes.
key. Thank you for explaining that, because as a therapist, which you are, you're seeing um, people are breaking down emotionally because they do not practice self-care. And like you said, in
Right.
the past, we didn't have so much triggers and stressors externally. So the solution that therapists, coaches, and psychiatrists have found is if people take the time for themselves, we might have a healthier
Mm-hmm.
community. Thank you. That makes a lot of
Yes.
sense. Very well
Yes.
explained. I knew you would put that light switch in me. Thank you. So you talked about the 8 dimensions of self-care. One of them are financial goals.
Mhm.
I don't know how I
Yes.
mean, majority of people majority of people are not wealthy, right? The majority of people don't make six figures. So how
Mm-hmm.
can
Mm-hmm.
they practice self-care through setting financial goals? Like, I think some people looking at their finances would actually cause more stress than restive
Mm-hmm.
and peace. So can you help explain that?
So it depends, right? So, which is why there is no specific amount next to the financial goals,
Hmm.
or even when it comes to even your self care, we do not say you have to do X, Y, Z. It's kind of specific. You have to know what to go tailored to the individual. So, financial goals. It doesn't mean you have to be wealthy. It doesn't even mean that you don't have to have any debt. But you know that at least you want to be able to be conscious of your expenses. What is your income? What is your expenses? You're trying to be proactive. Proactive is a word here, right? So let's say if you know that you're on a certain income bracket, you don't necessarily want to go out and purchase things that are way beyond your bracket, so that you're constantly, you know, incurring more and more and more debt. So a simple financial goal could be, this year I want to owe $1,000 less. For you, it could mean maybe saving $50 a month or $20. It doesn't matter. But something, small steps, right? Small steps that are realistic, are practical to you, and so that your number, your debt is decreasing as much as possible rather than increasing. Just being aware, being proactive. Whatever that little step is, $5 a month, $10 a month, it doesn't really matter. It's just you being proactive, taking that step, those little steps, right? So that you can see that you're working towards something. And you might even decide, I want to maybe upskill, so that if I upskill, I can apply for certain jobs, or open myself up to more opportunities, so that I can increase, my income. So that could be a financial goal, right? You upscale so you have more opportunities, right? So things like that.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for elaborating on that, because when I saw the financial self-care through the dimension of finances, I was like, oh no, I've never thought of it that way. But you explaining it and
Mhm.
suggesting that just rewarding yourself for making positive financial contribution, whatever that might be. For some people, maybe cutting down on buying coffee, right? Because coffee is getting expensive. A lot of things are getting expensive, by the way. But maybe instead of paying $5 from XX coffee shop, you can maybe make the coffee at home, and then um, um, celebrating yourself. I love that part you talked about celebrating yourself. Um, I like that. And I think celebrating yourself ties very well with self care. In the past, people celebrated people more. Would you suggest that? Now, people don't really celebrate people that much. I don't know if it's because they're so busy. So, learning to celebrate yourself is key. Again, for people like me, maybe my generation, it's like a weird concept, but I've learned to celebrate myself. I even share that with my patients and with students that I mentor. I tell them, tap yourself on your shoulder and say, Ebere, I am awesome. It feels
Mhm.
good. It feels really good. So, touch more on why
Mhm. Mhm.
celebration is an important thing and why it is healthy.
Because you do want to encourage yourself. You don't want to wait till December to say, oh, I did it, which is why when you set the goals, and they are smart goals, they're simple, they're realistic for you, they're measurable, you can look back and say, oh, I said I was going to go to the gym maybe 3 times this week. And I made it 3 times, or maybe I even went 4 times. Wow, I did it. right? I did it. You celebrate, you encourage yourself, and you check it off. You did a good job. You embrace yourself. You're giving yourself positive energy, right? So you've done well. Or even maybe you wanted to go 3 times, you went twice. Well, I almost made it. I'm going to celebrate that. So like, okay, I almost made it. Why couldn't I make it a third time? What do I need to change? But you're pushing yourself forward. Each time you celebrate yourself, you're pushing yourself forward. You're saying, yes, I'm working towards this goal. I'm working towards this goal. Is a reason why when people run a certain race or they do well in a certain industry, they get some kind of an award or acknowledgement or appreciation as a way someone is nodding towards you saying, you've done well, we encourage you, we know you can do this, keep moving forward, push yourself forward. So you do that for yourself because you want that energy to reflect on you, even if others don't do it for you.
Wow. Thank you for that. When we began this talk today, you took us through an activity, a reflection activity. It was beautiful. How often should we do it? Should we do it in the morning or at nighttime or when we are stressed? When do you do it?
I'd say, I don't say I have to do it. I don't give myself a specific time. Sometimes I do it more than once a day, right? So I don't say it's only going to be in the morning. So I do it even if I'm not stressed. I also do when I'm feeling stressed because I'm mindful of my emotions throughout the day. I keep track of it somehow because I'm like, okay, I need to be a better version of something. It's a goal I have. And it's 30 seconds. So sometimes you can even be in the office. No one knows you're doing it, but you are centering yourself. When you take those deep breaths, short, deep breaths,
Mhm.
you are centering yourself. You're grounding yourself. It's almost like you're resetting yourself for the day. So you could do it if you think it's best for you to do it in the morning. Great, that's you. If it's best to do in the afternoon, awesome. If the evening is good for you, great. But you can do it at any time during the day, stress, not stress. Just you do it until it becomes practice, so that way when you're feeling stressed, your brain tells you, hey, it's time to center yourself. It's time to take that breath, and just ways of grounding you automatically.
Wow, thank you. When you were talking about balancing your stressors with your positive emotions, that I just recently read the book on the 12 universal laws, and they talk about laws of vibration. But when you talked about stressors, and you give example of like avoiding or limiting the amount of stressors. What if you are a husband or a wife and your spouse stresses you? And what would be a tip?
Mhm.
Or you're a child and your parents stresses you, what would be a tip on like avoiding them, because you really shouldn't or can't?
Right. So if it's let me do it this. If it's a spouse, if it's a relationship, and one person is constant, because I mean there are bound to be maybe some misunderstandings or some disagreements, which is like a natural thing for life. But if it's constant and it's getting worse and nothing is getting better, it's a real trigger every day, that is a sign of an unhealthy relationship, right? So I think it's important to recognize that. And you want to ask yourself very important questions. If it's an unhealthy relationship, do I need to set boundaries? Do we need to go to therapy? Do we need to actually sit down and talk? Do I need to have different expectations? Do we need to give ourselves some space? What do we need to do so we are not constantly running into each other? Not doing anything about it is definitely not the way to go, because the problem is not going to fix itself per se. But if you do want to set up self-care goals, you definitely want to be able to have this conversation and set boundaries, set expectations, and say, hey, when you yell, or when this happens, I'm not going to accept the yelling anymore, or this is a boundary for me. Or maybe when I'm upset, or when you're upset, we're not going to continue a conversation when either one of us is going to overreact. That can be a boundary you set for yourself, right? So you both are hold yourself accountable, but you have to find a way. If it's an unhealthy relationship, then obviously it's counterproductive. You want to decide, is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life, or do we need intervention? Are we open to get intervention? Or do I need to do something differently? What do I need to do differently? But not doing anything, like I say, is not the way around it, because it's going to really impact you on so many levels, right? And you cannot want to live under that. You're going to be unwell, not just self-care, but it's going to come back with lots of other health issues down the line, which you don't want. When it comes to children, it's rather a difficult situation because it's always tough when a child feels unsafe or finds themselves in a toxic household, because a child is a child and they might have their own limitations. But I hope that as parents or as guardians, we have a system where our children can come to us and we can actually listen to them. Because when we don't listen to them, this is what will happen to a child. They will grow up and have certain tendencies, right? They could become aggressive, they could become angry, they could be acting out in school, everywhere around them. And we're going to label them as problem children, or they have ADHD. We're going to put labels on them, not recognizing that it's because of maybe the home setting, which is why they have certain tendencies. So I hope that we don't wait until it's too late, right? Because when you have the opportunity, I say it's always easier to nurture a young child than to try to fix a broken adult. So as parents, as guardians, we want to be mindful that the spaces that we create for our children are safe spaces, happy spaces where they can ask questions. And for ourselves as adults also, we also can communicate amongst ourselves when we feel like it's a very unhealthy situation.
Wow. Thank you again for that summary, and recognizing unhealthy situations also affects unhealthy situation also affects us in terms of self-love and self-care. So thank you so much for that. Anyhow, we've come to the end of this talk today. We thank Dr. Mercy Luguterah for coming to join us. Dr. Luguterah, we didn't mention this, is one of our board of directors for Love Your Menses. We love to have her as a part of our organization. She brings a different dimension, and she focuses on peace and children, nurturing them. So we love to have her. Thank you so much for serving on our Love Your Menses board. We
Thank you.
appreciate you. Thank you all for
Thank you.
watching this. If you guys want to know more about us, please like us on our Facebook channel. Like us even on Instagram, on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn. We told you all we launched Love Your Menopause. So if you're interested in inviting us over for a talk or for a workshop, let us know. Our piloted program was successful, and we want everyone reaching menopause to love it. You know, it's a part of life. Self-love is loving every phase of your reproductive life. This year's flu and COVID is this is the time for flu and COVID infection. So we recommend that you get flu and COVID vaccine to protect yourself before you get sick. We ask you to go on the CDC website to get more information about getting boosters or getting your initial COVID-19 vaccine. You can also contact us if you want more information, but we highly recommend vaccines because they protect you. I mean, I might even go further to say taking care of yourself and preventing yourself from flu and COVID-19 infection is self-love. Our sponsors for this is Healthy and Uplifted, Azuma Solution, and Love Your Menses. I'm going to leave you with this video. Let me share my screen. All right.
The lessons I've learned that have shaped my life to this point. First, they can't exist without you. That job you're prioritizing, that party you have to go to, that business you must be involved in, that thing you have to do, you don't have to do anything. Those people, that project, that business can happen without you. Prioritize you first. That is probably the number one thing I've learned over the years that's shaped me. The second thing I've learned over the years is that it's okay to not be okay. Just be careful who you share that with and protect yourself and don't overexpose yourself. The third thing I've learned over the years is nothing exceeds and succeeds like success. You want to be taken seriously, deliver on the wins. You say you're going to do something, do it at the time you said you're going to do it. Nothing succeeds like success.
All right. Thank you. I thought that was a good video. And I wanted to share with all of you. Thank you so much. I look forward to our next webinar. Watch out on our social media feeds to find out when our next webinar will be. But we have amazing speakers coming in to support and to care for you, because your wellness needs is our goal. Thank you. Bye bye.